And we are live. Welcome. I am Jacqueline Rodriguez, and I am your host today of the Green Beauty Community. And I am also, for those of you who may not know me, I'm the founder of Enlightened Styles, a holistic salon in Virginia, also the Holistic Salon Academy, and the Impactful Salon Owners podcast. And I'm really excited to be here and be your host and dive into Ray's background and all about him. But before we do that, we are going to dive into just some updates that we have for the Green Beauty community. We have education courses surrounding the topic of sustainable beauty. So it's really excited that we have 3 modules: holistic sustainability practices in salons and spas. And then we also have introduction to clean beauty and waste reduction and recyclability are officially available to help support you on your sustainability journey in your beauty career. These courses are for anyone starting or for pros who just want to showcase it to their community, their ongoing community, to bettering the beauty industry. You will receive certifications for your social media and for your workplace. So the link is going to be dropped in the comments below for you. And then if you missed the news, we have officially launched our Green Artist Collective. And this group consists of passionate beauty professionals in the industry to help bring the conversation of sustainability to events, local communities, and spread our mission. You can read more about it in the Beauty Launchpad article. And if you're interested in learning more, you can also contact our community coordinator, Kimberly Looms. And that link will also be in the comments there. And our last update is May is better known as Mental Health Awareness Month. And it's no secret that the beauty industry has a mental health problem, and it's not for lack of trying. Beauty professionals are superheroes, taking on the emotional load of their community, the physical demands, unstoppable income, unstable, unstoppable and unstable income, which can also come in hard economic times, lack of boundaries, or presence of toxic environment, people, planet, peace of mind, by our author, Daniel Johnson, is our newest article highlighting how a sustainable workplace environment can help ease some of those mental tolls on the beauty professionals that it really has been taking, day to day in their work life. So that article will be linked below as well. So without further ado, I would love to introduce Ray, and welcome to the show. And please tell us all about you.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And all about me. Well, gosh, where would we start? I think we start where we are. I think that's probably the most important role that I have now. The current role, of course, is I am the Chief Creative Officer. Is my official title for Collective Beauty Brands, which is the umbrella company for 2 incredibly innovative and beautifully sustainable brands called Color Space and Back of Bottle, otherwise known as Bob. That's what I've been doing the last 5 years. So I think I feel like that's really my the closest to the professional definition of what I've been working on as of late. Most people do know me, of course. I've been in the industry. I think the appropriate term is probably elder. Tribal elder, maybe but I think that earns me some sort of element of respect and wisdom that I may have gained along the way. But I certainly have been part of the beauty industry for a number of years and have participated in so many different roles, from the education and the creative, on the corporate, on the distribution, on the manufacturing side. So I've been very, very lucky. I feel very, very lucky to have all these perspectives and experiences that lead me here today.
I love that. I mean, you have really had such an expansive role in the community, and especially in the sustainability world, which is really, obviously you're in the right place. We love that. What inspired you to focus so deeply on the sustainability problem in the beauty?
Well, I don't know that it was necessarily just one moment in time. I think these types of, they're sort of an evolution of experiences that we have in our life that sort of slowly really mold us into what we become. And I think for sustainability and just the awareness around it, I think there's a number of different things. Obviously, my exposure, when I started traveling in particular, and I started to see more of how the world worked, I started becoming more and more curious about why people were living certain ways in certain places and in other ways in other places. And I got to really experience beautiful people that were just farmers that were making things organically and breaking things down nuts with two by fours and just using tarps to dry, using very rudimentary tools to create beautiful products that were going into somewhat very sophisticated products in the end use. But that, along with really exposure. I remember at one of my first trips to Paris, I was there as a session hairdresser, and I met Patrick Alès, which was doing a product line called Fito. And this was one of the very first, very beautiful, sustainable, gentler type of brands for the hair industry. And I think he was probably an apprentice back in the 50s. And yeah, that was my first introduction. And then, of course, influences like Horst, being able to be mentored by such a real visionary guy, somebody who really saw things well ahead of most of us, frankly, and built his vision and had all of us involved in crafting out that vision, which was I think a real privilege to be a part of. So there's a number of things I think that drive you there. Even personal challenges, health challenges play into it. When you're diagnosed with illness at a younger age and you start to wonder why, and you ask yourself these kinds of questions, and then you start to explore and understand that there are a lot of things, and these forever chemicals, for example, and things in our water and our food, and things that we know shouldn't be there. And of course, we start to ask her how much of that contributes to my illness, if at all. And
Yeah.
you know, I volunteered myself to be a specimen in a test, a book that was called "Slow Death" by Rubber Duck, written by yeah, it was written in 2010 by Bruce Lowry and Rick Smith, and they were doing experiments on people as well. And I was one of the experiments in that book, where they gave me a week's worth of products, very generic products that you could get at any drugstore, all the big manufacturers, and they asked me to use as much of it as possible every day. And then I had to provide urine samples on a daily basis. The analysis at the end of that week was the toxicity from when I started to the end of that week had increased fivefold. So there was no question in my mind when I did that test, and then returned back to using natural and less harmful products, how my toxicity level in my bloodstream went back down again. So I
Oh.
became aware through a number of different things along the way that this is real and this is important.
For sure. Well, I had no idea that you were in that experiment. That's really, it's really cool that there was an experiment like that and that we continue. I think really important to continue those types of things and see what this is actually doing to our bodies. So I will definitely be looking into the book so I can read all about that. So with your company's color space is only a couple of years old, but it has been growing, and the way that you have it set up is different than most brands. Could you tell us a little bit about how it's different and how it's set up to support beauty professionals?
Sure. And so it is now, it did launch in 2021. So January 11th, 2021. So it's now over 4 years old. So
Okay.
it's still a baby. It's still very much a baby. But it was, the world doesn't need more product. It really doesn't need another hair color line. It doesn't need another hair care line. So if you were going to enter into that world, and knowing all the competition that exists and all the challenges that you're going to have to overcome, you have to enter it with a mindset that you have to create something that doesn't exist. So innovation and creativity have to be at the forefront of how you're thinking, and not just creativity for the sake of creating something, because if it doesn't have purpose in making lives better, it has no value. So how do we make the lives of the stylists and colorists, and how do we make the lives of the client also, because we really start with that in mind. We started with the client experience. We started with the stylist colorist experience, and how does that, and how could we change any of that? Because it seemed to us, at least, that it was fairly predictable and always the same. And so therefore there was opportunity there. So introducing an appliance that actually heats up product, at the same time whips it into a texture that you cannot achieve any other way other than with this magnet and this motor, really allowed us to create something that would be really focused on removing the possibility of having irritation on the scalp. Because one thing that a lot of colorists do not know is that hair color doesn't begin to process until it reaches body temperature. It has to reach body temperature before those chemicals actually start to work. They're inter,
Mm.
and if you don't mix them really well, then they're inactive, and that's where you're going to get irritation, potential for irritation. And so that was just one of the things that we thought about. We said, well, we saw this machine being used in the lab. We said, can we use this in our labs in the
Wow.
salon? So that was one of the things that we did. We really looked at, of course, larger tubes, less carbon footprint, pharmaceutical grade water, pharmaceutical grade tubes. Our tubes are 98% plastic free. We tried to look at every aspect of it, and then ultimately we really looked at what are the real key things that is a colorist is concerned with, or a salon owner. And we knew that profitability was also another one. So we really tried to bring our costing into play where it was a real factor for a salon to make a decision. And that meant that we could help salons up to 60% savings on the lead against the leading brands. So we have a chart that shows, here's 60%, 50%, 40%, depending on what brand you're using. We believe that we can save you money. And most salons immediately recognize that opportunity, and they go, well, for even besides that, they're more excited about the performance, which is really where, the innovation and what we created. Bringing in green actives into hair color at the level that we did was really, I think, really a strong position that we took. Bringing in, like, our newest Demi line, for example, has these beautiful desert plants, these adaptogenic desert plants, which are just super hydrators. And we have 7 of them in that particular line, like Joshua Tree and Evening Primrose. But these are certified organic as well. So when they go on your scalp and you're putting a gloss on, for example, you're getting this beautiful cooling effect. So it really is, something more is happening than just color on your hair. We're actually giving you a scalp treatment at the same time. So these are some of the really cool innovations that came along with, of course, there's science behind it. The pigments that we took the pigment and we made it much smaller so that it could penetrate into the cortex, and the cuticle could fold down very, very easily and very comfortably. Then you got less fading. You got beautiful reflection as a result. We did a lot of things. There was a lot of innovation in this brand, but again, we really did think about the people involved, and probably our greatest strength is, our education and our service, our high touch service. We're hairdressers first and foremost. This is a group of hairdressers that got together. Lupe Voss, of course, everyone knows and loves, and myself, and a group of about 10 other hairdressers, and we just work tirelessly and still do, because we really believe that there's an opportunity to create something that doesn't exist, that still stays within the DNA of what the hairdressers are looking for and stays very close to that community. We know that many of the brands out there have either been purchased, or, there's celebrities behind them. There's a marketing department that creates brands. There's a lot of other things that do what they do, but we did think there was an opportunity here to do something quite different and do it from the genuine spirit of what hairdressers do, which is care. Tremendous.
Yes, yes, and I absolutely love that, because I truly believe that the way that we're gonna move forward in clean and sustainable is this innovation, and really thinking differently of how we are creating products, how we're creating experiences, and creating spaces for our clients, but also for our stylist and for the salon owner. And it's really that full circle, which I think is really beautiful. And I get really excited about like all of the new innovation that is out there and people like you who are thinking of the way to do things differently. And that was color space because then you even have the back of bottle, and you that also created a need. You saw a gap and you created that need for it. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that it was that was a bit even more obvious to me. There was a real opportunity, of course, having been, for many, many years with a beautiful brand that really had addressed a lot of those issues and challenges in sort of the green space well ahead of its time, and also created a wonderful and amazing community. So there was the gap laid more in how these products performed for me, because there were a lot of performance issues for me, and the performance issues were not as important at times at the core of the corporation's concerns, where for us as hairdressers, that performance is always going to be critical. And so one of the things that I noted about most brands was that the fact that they all coated the hair, that when I applied a product, the way in which it worked would always coat the surface of the hair. And so it would take time before it would actually penetrate, if in fact it penetrated at all. Making hair impenetrable didn't make sense to me. So I've been using skincare for a long time on hair. I have baby fine curly hair. And if you put anything that has weight at all on it, anything that's heavy, oily, greasy, it just weighs my hair down. And so I couldn't choose a lot of products. So I was using body hydration, body moisturizers on my hair for years and on my clients' hair. And so I approached this from a number of different perspectives differently. One of them was I wanted the products to actually absorb into the hair. I wanted them to actually penetrate into the hair shaft. Why? Because I felt like if all the products could continually penetrate, they would hydrate, they would strengthen, they would repair ongoingly, not having to do a mask, having to do products that coat the hair and then break the coating down and then do a mask to repair the damage and start over again, which is, to me, just didn't make any sense. So we saw an opportunity to follow along with skincare. Skincare absorbs and you layer it and it's beautiful. So we thought, oh, this could be really cool if we can get the technology right. Well, that proved to be extremely challenging, very, very challenging to do. But we wanted to bring new to market. We wanted to bring ingredients that had never been used before. And so doing that was probably one of the most challenging things that we had to overcome. Took 4 years to get, this product line to the performance level that hairdressers wanted it to be and that we knew consumers would love at the same time. We also saw another opportunity that didn't really, we just saw all the brands speaking to a fantasy client. We just couldn't connect and say, this is a real person we're talking about. And not to say that these models aren't real people. Of course they're beautiful and they're real people, but it didn't represent the community that was us. And so within our ethos, the ethos being that your hair is part of your identity. It's not an accessory. And as part of your
Mhm.
identity, a hairdresser who's serving you is trying to customize that experience, because I need to know who you are. I need to connect strongly with who you are in order to be able to use my craft skills to be able to do something that represents what I believe you would like to look like, right? This is really the opportunity in a very customized approach. So we had to develop a line of products that didn't necessarily say, well, this is for straight, or this is for volume, or this is for curl necessarily. We wanted to, Bob is for hair, not hair types, right? We wanted products that were very versatile. And so with one product, can I get 4 different looks with one product? And we found that the hairdressers, the more they used these products, they were telling us, oh, I used your curl cream, but I used it to do a straight chignon. It's one of the best products I've ever used. Or I'm using it for round brush blow drying smooth. So we realized very quickly that what we were trying to do actually was working. People were using the product line in a way that allowed them to be the beauty professional to recommend that routine to that client, but customize it. So it's very customizable. The imagery, if you look at our images, we don't use like, professional models, and we use a very inclusive and very diverse group of people, and we actually go city to city. Wherever we go, we shoot. If we're doing a presentation, we shoot that community. And instead of doing collections like fashion collections, we do the community. We do that community represent. So we did Toronto, LA, Denver, Chicago, Minneapolis. These are the communities we go to,
Beautiful.
and we were able to find people with wonderful stories and add them to our community at Back of Bottle and Color Space. So the imagery and what I get, even just the other day, we've just signed up another distributor, and the education director said, "I just want to thank you. I just want to thank you for your imagery, because I see me in your imagery, and I just want to thank you for that, for fighting for that." She said, "I didn't fight, but." But she said it was so refreshing to see something that depicted the way in which our community is represented in an honest way. And I'm from Toronto. It's the most diverse, inclusive city in the world, ahead of London and New York. To me, this was not trend. This was not gimmicky. This is not marketing. This is just who we are, and this is who we've
Yeah.
always been. So it comes quite naturally that way. So there were, those were the things that we were thinking about. We were thinking about, how do we make these high performance products in a really innovative way? How do we make them behave like skincare? How can we make them do more than one thing? How can each product actually, like our hairspray, have pea protein in it, so it's strengthening as you're using your hairspray? Things like that a lot of people hadn't thought about. And then very modern approach. I mean, the packaging, everybody's pastel, everybody has bright colors, everybody has a lot of decor. And we went the opposite. We went into something very sleek, very minimal. We tried to reduce the packaging as much as possible, and this was very difficult to do. I had initially thought that we would use no plastic at all, and it's proven to be difficult. Not to say that we won't always pursue always the best choices that way, but putting shampoo in glass is a very tricky proposition. And we did try it at the very beginning because I loved the way it looked, and I love the messaging, and I love the fact that it's recyclable. And we've used glass quite a bit actually in our styling products. But for the most part, consumers are still reluctant and a little hesitant to bring glass into the shower. It's still not, even if I tell you it's not breakable glass, but all glass is breakable, but
Mhm.
it's hard to break it. But people are reluctant; they're a little nervous to go in with glass. But I think biodegradable options are coming. There are better and better choices that we'll be able to make as we go forward.
Yeah, with all that new innovation. I mean, companies are innovating all the time. Without the glass, like, what are your shampoo bottles, made of right now?
They're all PCR. Every bit of plastic that we use is PCR, with the exception of our dry shampoo, because it's a powder, and you
Okay.
can't put a powder into a PCR container, or you shouldn't anyway, because you risk contamination. So we use PET plastic, which is, if anyone knows anything about recycling, it is the most in demand plastic. It has many lives. That's the reason why a recycler will pay a lot of money for PET. So it's important that when you have a PET plastic, that you recycle it, because the recyclers love PET plastic, and it's got a long lifeline. It doesn't go into the dump unless you put it in the wrong place. But it's a better of a bad choice, if you will.
Yeah. Well, and we've had discussions on the webinar and on podcasts and everything about all of the different options with packaging, and how really there's no one problem solving package. It's all going to have its things here and there, and we're just doing the best that we can. And I think education has a big component in that, and just learning how to talk to our clients about that, and making sure that they know how to recycle it properly, and doing those kinds of things in the salon as the stylist. I think are very important. And then as a brand, I know that you have a lot of education through your companies as well,
Yeah,
which is a big
and
part.
yeah, I'm glad you said that there isn't really one solution that is perfect. There is no such thing as perfect. It's everybody's working, I think, very diligently to try to do their best. And there are a lot of people
Mhm.
doing great things, a lot of brands that are really making a concerted effort, in my opinion, and it's inspiring to see. I'm a big cheerleader for all the brands that want to do the right thing and are trying to always, make sure that we're all making the best decisions we can.
Yeah, and that's what Green Beauty is all about. Green Beauty Community is to bring everyone together so that we can champion the bigger goal, which is sustainability, reducing, and not being such a big well, I mean, the beauty industry in general is just very wasteful. So we're really just championing everyone and all the innovations to come together.
Yeah.
And it's been a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah.
Now, with everything that you have created, and as long as you've been in the industry, and you mentioned a few challenges, but I'm sure there were some pretty big challenges that you had to overcome to be able to get these out into the market, and maybe some that you continue to face. Would you mind telling us a little bit about those?
How much time do you have again? No, I'm joking.
I know it's a loaded question, but I think it's important for people to hear.
Well, I mean, I think everyone who has opened a salon can relate to the startup. And the startup is any new company that you start up will have a whole slew of challenges. Making a product has so many different layers of challenges because there's so much of it that is outside of your control. So all that which is out of your control is just out of your control. The greatest challenge personally was keeping my proverbial shit together, so as to say, like, this is crazy, like I have no control over this, so you've got to just back
Mhm.
away and let it be, but do your best in the most concerted way to to get it to where you need to get it to. But I'd say starting with first and foremost was really finding someone that understood what I wanted to do as a chemist. So I needed a chemist partner, and just finding someone, because most companies and most people in my position probably would not have done what I did. Most of them would have taken their top 20 favorite products from the market. They would have gone to a chemist and they would have said, hey, just make me something close to these 20. And then we'll change the fragrance, and then we'll change the package, and we're done. And all of that may have cost $500,000 or something like that, and maybe 6 months of time to get it down, maybe 7, 8 months of time to get it done. No, no. We, on the other hand, said we want nothing to do with anything that's ever made. We want to make it from scratch. We want new to industry ingredients. So we want to be on the cutting edge. We want every new ingredient that gets published. And we were all on top of that research, getting every new, and we still are, by the way, every new ingredient that comes out. And they, because ingredients come out like they're like trends. They come out all the time, and no, they don't really know what you can do with them. They'll tell you what the properties are, and then it's up to you creatively and a creative chemist to actually put it together like a chef would. You're going to cook something up and you're going to make something with that. And so the difficulty was how long that took and how expensive that proposition became. And that was 4 years, where we thought we would be done within a year. We took 4 years. It took a lot longer, of course, a lot more money, but it was because we rejected so much of what we were making was not meeting the standards. So it is very difficult to do, is to use really clean, sustainable ingredients and make really high performance. It's not an easy task. I thought it would be a lot easier. It is not easy. It is a real creative and scientific challenge for sure. I think the other part of the challenge was once you had your formulas, finding someone who wanted to buy those ingredients, because they don't keep them in bulk like the big fillers. I'll
Mhm.
keep, the everyday ingredients are kept in bulk. So to buy small amounts was expensive. And then to deal with a small, very fussy manufacturer like us, super fussy, we're basically a pain. We're a pain for everybody. But it's because we're adhering to such high quality standards. And so finding partners, we have gone through a first tier of partners that were acquired in the process, and the new owners were humongous, and they looked at us and went, you're an ant, get out of here. So we had to find another filler, and there was a gap where we didn't have enough product, and those were the kinds of challenges that were way outside of our control. So
Mm.
there's a tremendous amount of uncontrollable, and then there's the creative challenges, if you will, and of course there's always the financial challenges of any new startup.
And with all of those, I mean, there is a trade-off, right? And you have really stuck with your main mission and continued through those, even through those trade-offs of, more time versus getting it together quickly. And I love that messaging is really important for anyone listening, like, no matter what you're doing, whether you are starting a brand or you're starting a salon or you're just, um, starting any journey, remembering that it's those trade-offs, but it's so worth it to get really clear and be a stickler in that that clarity and what your mission is. So thank you for sharing that because it really does it is that make or break for you. Um, and when you're talking with all of the ingredients and everything, how are you approaching the transparency of the ingredients and supply chain um, with the community, with your stylists, salon owners? How does that look for everyone?
Yeah, I mean, we've said right from the very beginning, we're totally 100% transparent, and we make no claims of being perfect. And when we understand that something might need to be relooked at, we're right there and ready to do what we need to do, because it's not a black and white area, really. It's these are not black and white. There's a lot of controversial research that's out there. There's a lot of information that sometimes we call misinformation. So you're constantly checking and fact finding to make sure that the decisions that you're making. But we started off with a very strong no list. We had Allure's no list, we had Sephora's no list. We took everything we could find, anything that was an endocrine disruptor, anything that had to do with human beings being harmed in any way, whether it was skin or whether internal, or anything that was harming the environment. We knew we weren't going to use, and we were very disciplined about it. We were super disciplined. Even as recent as a couple of weeks ago, I have a partner in filling who said, "Don't you think you would be better off using a synthetic fragrance?" And I said, "No, I can't. It's not an option. Because it's
Mhm.
cheaper, and because the fragrance will linger longer. Where botanicals are much more temperamental. They dissipate very quickly. They're volatile. As soon as you open things up, they change very rapidly, and it's a problem because they have never worked with botanicals before, pure 100% botanicals. So you have this discipline around what you do, and you have to stick with what it is that you believe in, and you then put it out there and say, this is what we do. And our website has all of our ingredients. Everything is clearly laid out, full description. We're powered by Clear for Me, that all of them link to Clear for Me for further uh, you know objective, if you will, definitions. And we know that it constantly changes. There are things that even 4 years ago that we were working with that have already moved into more and more in the darker gray, where they were actually very light gray. So things, as the EU will have different regulatory requirements than North America. North America, of course, as we know, is more lenient, but these are all things that we have to deal with, and we are on top of it, and we will constantly look for the best solutions.
I I literally am so excited to hear that because it is one of the biggest things that I've noticed just, owning a salon and going through and making all the decisions is that constant need to reevaluate where you're at, what you're bringing in, and the ingredients that you already are promoting and using, and just making sure that things continue to stand up to the standards instead of this once was fine and we're just not going to look at that ingredient again or that product again. So I applaud you for that because I know that it takes a lot of time and effort. But that's the entire base behind being transparent and having that mission. Um, with the future of sustainability and beauty, because we're seeing a lot of things happening, a lot of innovations. What do you see coming down the pipeline that's new and innovative, for yourself or just for the industry as a whole?
Well, I think all of the things that you probably already are very aware of, like looking at packaging in particular. I think the advent of biodegradables, and more so in packaging, refillable biodegradable is very exciting. I think anything that's reduces your carbon footprint, anything that goes circular, local, small batches. Ingredients obviously are really key. I think sourcing transparency might be another area that I'm excited about. Where do your ingredients actually really come from? Things like that I think are all really, they're, I don't think of this as trend. I think of it as more evolution as we grow and our awareness grows more and more. So I think, when we look at consumers are driving a lot of this. The hairdressers in some ways sometimes lag behind, which is not always the case, but it can depend geographically. Funny enough, sometimes it's just a geographical issue. Sometimes it's an age thing. And then if you have children, certain age groups, then you also become more aware through your children. But when we talk about the different demographics that are driving the awareness, I mean, there are staunch representation with younger population, and they're the ones they won't even buy if you don't have a position on purpose, if you don't have an intention behind what you're doing. They're not even looking at your brand, frankly. So there is that. That may be, that's not a trend either, because these Gen Zs are not, they're young, and millennials are very young people. These are the ones that have the money, and they will pay more. Frankly, they'll pay more for something that is cleaner, that you can, you have to be transparent, you have to be clean, you have to try your best, and it's greatly appreciated by those demographics, and I think also by those hairdressers. I found that with Bob, we definitely move a lot freer through a younger demographic. It's very accepted very quickly through a younger demographic. So there is that awareness out there too, which is really great.
Yeah, and frankly, the younger demographic is the one that's gonna continue to lead the force. They're not gonna be the younger demographic forever. So going forward, it's like, how fast can you move to be able to get in with that demographic and have the longevity of that demographic as well, which I think is really amazing that that is there and that clients are so aware. With the salon professionals out there, beauty professionals, trying to promote or just curious about it, what would you say to them? Like, if they're kind of on the fence of, trying these things out?
Well, you can't. I think most hairdressers are going to go performance first, and then if they don't like the package, they may not even want to try it. So it's still a very superficial journey at the beginning. It's not one rooted in knowledge, for example. But
Mhm.
again, I've had recently quite a few independent hairdressers calling up and saying, my clients are asking for something cleaner. It hadn't even occurred to me that this was important. So what I did was a little bit of research, and now I know that you're in that category. Could you send me, your information and tell me more about what you do? So you have to, I think it's an authentic proposition. If you do not do some homework, if you do not become a little bit educated, how you will experience this journey will greatly depend on your enthusiasm for it, your curiosity for it. So I can't spark that in you, really. It's hard for anybody to do that. But once they do, and once they have a little bit of curiosity and there is a little bit of enthusiasm there, then I think it's a really fun next step into that journey. And then there's so much available, because it's craft and care here. It's not, it's both. We want to bring the intention of what we do behind the chair to really change lives each and every day, because that's really the opportunity as a hairstylist. You can change lives every day. You can make your job so much more than what it is. And yes, we have to be prepared physically and mentally, spiritually. We need to be fully prepared every day for that challenge. And so if you take a product line that fully embraces the same values as how you're trying to do this job with intention, then you have really nice alignment. You're not using something that, oh, it's great because it glues the hair down really well, but it's synthetic, and it doesn't have anything to do with the things that I really value in my life now. And so
Mm.
there is a shift there within the hairdressing community, but there are those who are saying, hey, look at, my clients don't care, I don't care. But there is, we always say at Back of Bottle, we always say, like, we're not for everybody. We know that. We absolutely understand that we're not for everybody. But when people fall in love with us, it's hard. It's a hard fall. You're in.
They're head over heels.
Yeah.
I love that. So, with our final time here, Is there anything that I didn't hit on that's really important for you to get out there? Anything like that?
Well, I do think that it's important that we continue as a community, you, I, everyone, that we continue, to promote the information and the messaging. We are doing important work. I think that we're redefining in many ways what is beauty in this category in the hairdressing industry. And I think that's a responsibility that we're taking very seriously, above and beyond the business aspects of it. I think it's a way of saying, look, I mean, I love this industry and I love what I've been able to do, get, receive, and participate in. And perhaps, the legacy isn't about necessarily just the products, but maybe it's about building that awareness and continuing to build awareness for just a better future overall for all of us.
I love that, and I think that that's the biggest impact that we can have, um, in the industry. So, tell us where anyone who's wanting to know how to get in touch with you, how to learn more about the products, and your mission, where can we find you?
Well, just go on our websites. I mean, they're, backofbottle.com, colorspacehair.com, at colorspace, at back of bottle, on our social. You want my personal phone number? I can provide you with that. And I'm not
We'll be
joking.
texting you
I
at
am
all
absolutely,
times.
I am not kidding. I answer the phone. Everyone here, we're a
Love
we're a
it.
small knit group that pride ourselves in still being very much in touch with
Yeah.
with the people that we serve, and we take that that word very seriously. We serve our community. That's why we're here.
And we can feel it for sure. Your mission is amazing. All of your links will be down in the links below, so it's easy to find. And I just appreciate you and everything that you're doing. Thank you for coming on the webinar and for sharing your knowledge. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. It was a lot of fun. Thanks very much.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
you're welcome. Well, everyone, thank you for joining us. Your support is what makes these webinars free and accessible. So we do have the donation link below, and Hannah will be dropping that in there for you. And like every time, follow us, show up, have some conversations, follow both I'm got too many things going on there. Back of Bottle and Color Space. Make sure that you follow them, and you can always get in touch with me at the Clean Beauty Biz Coach on Instagram because I too am the one answering and love having these conversations. Thank you so much, and we will see you on the next webinar.
Bye.